We're going to talk about the Commonwealth now. Heads of government are getting together in Samoa this week, and the Deputy Chief Minister will be there. And I'm not sure if you heard, but the King was heckled in Australia. Not particularly clear to hear, but the shouts were, "You are not my king," in Australia from an independent senator just after he finished an address at Australia's Parliament House. It's just a talking point. We've heard John get in touch. John says that he agrees that the kings and queens in past centuries fine, but today's different. He doesn't agree with treating anyone like a god, and sadly many people are slaves to monarchs. But that's John's view. 200 if you want to add your voice to it. Adriana Lopez, good afternoon. We invited you in to talk about the role of the Commonwealth, not about the king, but I don't know if you want to comment on it at all.
I mean, it is a little bit of a loaded question, and I don't know about my opinion on it. But I think it's not surprising to have somebody react in that way. Everyone's free to feel however they want, especially about the monarchy and understanding the role that they've had over history. It's easy to understand why an indigenous leader of the Australian party would say that. No, but again, at the end of the day, it's up to the Australian Parliament and the people of Australia to decide the role of the Commonwealth in Australia.
And what about the role of the Commonwealth for Gibraltar? Where do you start?
So I start from, for example, so I've been very much involved with the youth aspect of the Commonwealth here in Gibraltar. And from my perspective, I mean, I see it as a vehicle and a platform where young people with an interest in international politics can come together. And really, we've had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of different experiences, not just here in Gibraltar, but especially outside throughout the Commonwealth. And I think that's absolutely invaluable to a place like Gibraltar, being so small, being given that opportunity on an international platform.
So who's representing us? We know that the Deputy Chief Minister, Joseph Garcia, is there in an official capacity, but then there are young Gibraltarians going to the Youth Forum as well.
So we've got Kareem Macolina and Christina Koskeri, who are both extremely talented young individuals, and they just arrived yesterday in Samoa. It was a bit of a long journey for them to get there. But essentially that they'll now have a week to attend the biggest youth forum in the world. And that's where they'll really be able to get together with like-minded people and discuss the policies for the youth going forward for the next year in the Commonwealth. And it'll be a really fantastic experience for them. Again, when you go out to these forums and you meet people, you are surrounded with essentially the leaders of tomorrow in those other fields, no? Because you got to think it's 2 individuals from every country that get selected to go. So usually they're looking for the top pedigree, and people who are really interested in politics and stuff. So it would be a very good experience for them that they are grabbing with both hands, and they've already sent me tons of photos and they're really enjoying themselves already.
So you attended a few years back. What advice did you have for them ahead of their departure?
Yeah, so we actually met a couple of weeks ago, and I was lucky enough to go to Kigali in Rwanda with Aaron Santos, my colleague. And again, I told them, make sure you enjoy every moment, speak to as many people as possible, because I think that's another reason why it's amazing to go. No, you get to meet people from, I don't know, one of my closest friends was from Tonga, for example, the last time I went, and we're still in touch. So it's actually quite incredible for that, and also to exchange ideas. So for example, in Tonga they've got a youth parliament set up, so even bringing ideas back of how it would even be possible to try and mimic that one day here in the future. So it's very cool to be able to exchange those ideas and that.
So what does it look like? It's a meeting of these representatives, 2 per Commonwealth territory,
Yeah.
and there's sort of like a parliament type setup?
Yes, so for example, that's more when you go to the Commonwealth Youth Parliament, which also happens every 2 years. Even recently, we had 2 other young individuals in September. They were also in Trinidad and Tobago, I believe, for that. But the Commonwealth Youth Forum happens under the framework of the government, the Heads of Government meeting. So it's actually a week where you're there. You've got prime ministers and presidents arriving from all different types of countries. The King will also be there. And essentially, you attend a forum with about 400 young people, and there you're treated to different talks, different discussions. So it's got a slightly different setup to when you go to the Parliament, but it's still extremely valuable because you are exposed to all different kinds of ideas and information, and essentially you then meet up at the end of the week, and that's when you vote on different policies for the youth, and then that will be taken to the Heads of Government meeting at the end of the forum, which again is very interesting because you have young people coming up and driving that policy, and that's then taken to the presidents and prime ministers from several different countries, and then they'll have to act on that when thinking about the policy of the Commonwealth for the next year.
Adriana, you were at the Gibraltar Today in London events,
Yeah.
including the one that was hosted by the Indian High Commissioner
Yes.
to the UK, paid for and hosted by the High Commissioner at India House. And we heard there that there could be a significant partnership there for Gibraltar with India because of how different the places are and what one can offer the other, complementary and different. Is that the sort of conversation that can be had when you travel and meet different countries and territories from the Commonwealth?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always this element of networking, no? And that's why I was trying to say before how important it is for Gibraltar, the Commonwealth, because little Gibraltar has a chance of talking to states such as big as India, the biggest democracy in the world. And I remember when we were back in the Indian High Commission last week, I remember thinking like, oh, there's something really palpable about our time when we went to New Delhi, also for the Commonwealth and those similarities. And there are really, I mean, also Gibraltarian society, there is a massive Indian community here, so it's something that just works. So even more so with the Commonwealth being that vehicle for that connection that's already made in there, no? So why not just make the most out of it and yeah.
When we left the European Union, not by choosing, not by choice, but obviously the UK decided to leave, and we left with them. There was talk of the Commonwealth taking on an increased significance for Gibraltar as a group, a family of nations that could perhaps in some way replace the European Union, which perhaps had done more of that up until the moment that we left. Do you think that's happening?
Well, as a former politics student, I like to be really nitpicky because I've always defended that the Commonwealth was never going to replace the European Union. They're both two completely institutions that serve very different purposes. But it is true that I think that the Commonwealth has played a more significant role since we departed from the EU, and it would be silly to not take up on those opportunities with 56 member states and 20 odd territories. So it would be silly to not even have a look into that. So I think that although the Commonwealth cannot replace the European Union, it definitely is a superstructure, if you like, where Gibraltar does have a place in the world, and it goes further than the European Union. No, I mean, we've got countries represented in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, nonetheless, all the Pacific Islands. So it is absolutely, although it doesn't replace the European Union, it's an extremely important organisation for Gibraltar.
And when you look at that meeting that's happening in the coming days, that you think is going to bear fruit in the future, and one worth continuing to invest time and energy in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think it would, the more events that we can have, obviously Gibraltar would be quite hard to host the Heads of Government meeting, but any other events, periphery events that we could host from the Commonwealth, because that's another thing. No, there are many, many different arms of the Commonwealth and a lot of different organisations doing different things. We've also got, for example, Jared Peralta from the CWIC, who's also in Samoa, exploring the business forum and that. So yeah.
Should be good. We're hoping to speak to Jared upon his return. Thank you for joining us so much, Adriana Lopez, who herself, as we've heard, represented Gibraltar at the Commonwealth Youth Forum in recent years and continues to be a champion of the Commonwealth.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Lovely to have you.